Here is a summary of my brief thoughts on the recent attempt for a silver short squeeze. So this is not the first time that this has been tried. Almost a decade ago, Max Kaiser started the Buy Silver Crash JP Morgan campaign, and while it was not ultimately successful, the silver price did run up in 2010 and 2011 enormously before the CME Group, or Chicago Mercantile Exchange Group, which runs the COMEX, and the LBMA changed a bunch of the rules in a very short amount of time to stop the silver price from rising, and by mid-2011, the silver price crashed, and it was in a bear market, a paper bear market that was manipulated for a very long time. That took many, many years, over 7 years, to get out of. So if you're new to this, if you just joined from Wall Street Bets and you're attempting to clean out physical metal from the bullion dealers, welcome to the real resistance. We are anti-Federal Reserve Bank. We are anti-bankster. We are anti-big government, pro-free market. And this is a very difficult fight when you buy physical metal and try to move the paper silver price up, because the people in power, the bullion banks, whether that is JP Morgan or HSBC Bank or many of the other bullion banks, and for the last couple of years, we've had a number of bullion banks try to get out of it because of the derivatives market. And these are the OTC derivatives that are attached to the LBMA. David Morgan has talked about this for many, many years, the silver guru. Also, I highly recommend listening to the interviews recently from the SD Bullion CEO and also David Morgan on Kitco. They were very interesting. But there's an attempt by the Wall Street Bets crowd who were over in GameStop. Now they're buying physical metal, and they're cleaning out enormous amounts of physical silver in terms of coins and bars at a lot of the bullion dealers. But the paper price is getting smashed. I'm recording this video on early Tuesday morning, February 2nd, and the paper silver prices are already being smashed. Unfortunately, we also have the CME Group, again, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange Group, talking about hiking margins again. I believe margins have already been hiked 18%. I would not be shocked to see margins on futures contracts hiked enormously. For SLV, we've had enormous amount of capital inflows into SLV, which is paper silver. There is no proof really that the SLV actually buys physical silver because they do not allow independent audits. So even though this past Friday there was $1 billion worth of capital inflows into SLV, and there's been a lot of capital inflows into SLV lately, there is not a lot of proof that physical silver was bought. And I actually know money managers that in 2009, 10, and 11 tried to buy a ton of physical silver, and they were unable to take delivery for 6 months or longer, even though COMEX claimed there was plenty of metal in inventory in all the different categories in the vaults. So these are the types of games that the bullion banks, so the large banks that are bullion banks, that the CME Group, the COMEX, the LBMA, and others get away with. Even the CFTC, the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, which is in charge supposedly of regulating commodities markets and derivatives, even the CFTC has talked about how silver derivatives, which are OTC silver derivatives on the LBMA, related to the LBMA, could potentially be in trouble if the silver price continues to go higher and breaks above overhead resistance levels. Now, in terms of the silver mining companies, it looks like First Majestic Silver is the one that's benefiting the most. They're up over 7%, their shares recently, with help from the Wall Street Bets crowd that are signaling. But the Wall Street Bets crowd is talking about cleaning out bullion dealers here in the US and other countries out of physical silver for the next month. Now, we'll see if that actually happens. That would be a significant amount of capital, but I would not be surprised to see the rules changed on the LBMA and on the COMEX to try to stop the silver price from rising. We're already seeing margin hikes. There could be a lot more of those. They can change the rules in many other ways, but we might continue to have a paper price spike in silver. Ultimately, silver prices over the next 12 to 18 months are going a lot higher. They cannot completely slow down this, especially with money supply here in the US growing rapidly, and also the Fed's balance sheet, which has not done very much in the last 6 months. I would be shocked if the Fed's balance sheet is not a lot higher in the next 6 to 12 months. It might be over $8 trillion in 6 months or less. That is how much spending the Biden administration and Congress, that is slightly Democrat controlled, now has planned. For those of you that are new to the silver market, welcome to the resistance. The physical silver is not really an investment. I don't view it as an investment. I've been saying this for years. I view physical silver for insurance and wealth preservation, especially with the way silver is taxed for Americans. So you do not get long-term capital gains taxes for buying and holding physical metal. It's taxed as a collectible, which is at a much higher capital gains tax rate than buying and holding a stock. But physical silver will preserve purchasing power compared to fiat currencies. So we'll see what happens with the battle that's going on now between the bullion banks, the CME Group, the CFTC, and people buying physical silver. But unfortunately, and happens all the time, and I've interviewed guests in the past, many guests in the past, whether that's Eric Sprott or James Anderson of SD Bullion, who I interviewed about 6 or 7 months ago. I highly recommend listening to that interview where we went through a lot of the recap of the bullion banks and how lower level traders were being rolled up. But in terms of silver miners, there are better run silver miners than First Majestic Silver, although they're the main beneficiary of the Wall Street Bets crowd that are talking about short squeezing and buying up shares of First Majestic Silver. So the share price of First Majestic Silver may appreciate, but in my opinion, I prefer much better run silver miners like a Pan American Silver or a Fortuna Silver that are producers and tend to be run more efficiently. But we may have all silver miners benefit if the silver price keeps rising. So unfortunately, to wrap things up, I think the rules changes are going to be what is attempted to stop the paper silver prices from going too high, because that is what's been going on since I've been covering gold and silver and buying physical metal and buying mining shares and royalty and streaming companies since 2007 and 2008.